Good afternoon, dear colleagues. We have several questions today, including the issue of migration policy. However, I would like to begin with another matter that is absolutely crucial and fundamental to safeguarding our national interests, Russia's sovereignty, and to ensuring international security more broadly, without any exaggeration. I am referring to the situation in the realm of strategic stability. Unfortunately, it continues to deteriorate, a consequence of various factors, all of a negative nature, which are provoking the worsening of existing risks and the emergence of new strategic threats. As a result of the previously destructive actions undertaken by Western countries, the foundation for constructive relations and practical cooperation between nuclear weapon states has been severely undermined. The basis for dialogue in suitable bilateral and multilateral formats has been shaken. Gradually, the system of Soviet-American and Russian-American agreements on the control of nuclear missile and strategic defensive weapons has been almost entirely dismantled. A system that effectively stabilized the situation between the states and the owners of the two largest nuclear arsenals, whilst also bolstering global security overall. I emphasize once again that we have repeatedly discussed the causes and possible consequences of this state of affairs. We associate the numerous problems that have accumulated in the strategic sphere since the beginning of the 21st century with the destructive actions of the West, the destabilizing doctrinal concepts, and military technical programs aimed at undermining global parity and attempting to achieve absolute dominance. We have consistently criticized this stance in detail, focusing on these issues. Not only did we underline the grave danger of further deterioration in the situation, but we also repeatedly put forward specific ideas for its joint resolution. However, our warnings and initiatives have not received a clear response. I would like to emphasize, and no one should have any doubt about this, that Russia is fully capable of responding to any current or emerging threats. To respond not with words, but through the use of military technical measures. An example of this is our decision to lift the unilateral moratorium on the deployment of intermediate and short-range ground-based missiles. This was a necessary step, driven by the need to adequately counter programs for deploying similar American and other Western-made weapons in Europe and the Asia-Pacific region, which directly threatens Russia's security. Our plans to strengthen the country's defense capabilities are being developed in line with the changing global situation and are being implemented fully and on schedule. We are confident in the reliability and effectiveness of our national deterrent forces, but at the same time, we are not interested in further escalating tensions or fueling an arms race. Russia has always prioritized and continues to prioritize political and diplomatic methods for maintaining international peace based on the principles of equality, indivisibility of security, and the consideration of mutual interests. Let me remind you that the last significant political and diplomatic achievement in the field of strategic stability was the conclusion of the Russian-American Strategic Offensive Arms Treaty in 2010. However, due to the highly hostile policies of the Biden administration, which violated the fundamental principles on which this agreement was based, its full implementation was halted in 2023. Nonetheless, both sides have affirmed their intention to voluntarily continue adhering to the key quantitative limits outlined in the treaty until the end of its lifespan. Thus, for nearly 15 years, this agreement has continued to play a vital role in maintaining a balance of power and certainty in the realm of strategic offensive weapons. The START Treaty expires on the 5th of February, 2026, which signifies the imminent disappearance of the last international accord on direct restrictions to nuclear missile capabilities. Therefore, a complete rejection of the legacy of this treaty would, in many respects, be a misguided and short-sighted move, which, in our view, would undermine efforts to achieve the objectives of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. To prevent further escalation of the strategic arms race and to maintain a reasonable level of predictability and restraint, we believe it is justified to aim to preserve the status quo amidst the current rather turbulent circumstances, in accordance with the START Treaty. Therefore, Russia is prepared to continue adhering to the central quantitative limits for 1 year beyond the 5th of February, 2026, as stipulated by the START Treaty. Moving forward, we will evaluate the situation carefully and make a definitive decision regarding the continued adherence to these voluntary self-restrictions. We believe that this measure will only be sustainable if the United States acts similarly and refrains from taking steps that could undermine or breach the existing balance of deterrence capabilities. In this regard, I urge the relevant departments to continue closely monitoring the activities of the American side. First and foremost, attention should be paid to the START arsenal. Particular focus should also be given to plans to develop the U.S. missile defense system strategic components, including preparations for deploying interceptors in space. We must consider that the realization of such destabilizing actions could undermine our efforts to maintain the status quo in strategic missile defense. We will respond accordingly. I believe that the implementation of the Russian initiative could make a significant contribution to fostering an environment conducive to a meaningful strategic dialogue with the United States of America. Naturally, this involves creating the conditions for its full resumption, taking into account the full spectrum of efforts to normalize bilateral relations and address fundamental security concerns. Let's now turn to the current agenda.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest newsmakers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HD videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.